we look at other NDR achievements under Zuma, the land claims were reopened. So we had 160,000 more restitution claims that were lodged before the relevant statute reopening the process was struck down. And that's really an important thing, because this was twice the number that had initially been lodged. Many of those initial 80,000 claims still hadn't been settled. Now you had 160,000 claims which can't be looked at yet. The initial ones first have to be resolved. But it will take hundreds of years and at least 100 billion rand to deal with these restitution claims. So the real point of them is for the ANC to be able to argue that the simplest solution is to have major expropriation without compensation, and then the state will decide how land should be reallocated. We also had bilateral investment treaties with Western countries that were terminated. These were with all our most important investor partners, the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, France. The countries which invest the most in South Africa had their bilateral investment treaties ended. Countries like Russia, Cuba, and China did not. And the upshot is that where a fresh investment comes from the European states, then it can be made subject to EWC. The Expropriation Bill of 2015 was adopted by Parliament but not signed into law. The SACP said, we think we can get more. In other words, they wanted an EWC provision to be included in the Expropriation Bill, and that's what we have now in the version that is before Parliament. Harney's vision of socialism was all about socioeconomic rights was also brought closer. First of all, these rights were included in the 1996 Constitution, mostly as rights of access to health care, water, food, social security. And at the same time, the Bill of Rights was given both a vertical and a horizontal application. In appropriate circumstances, and it wasn't clear what those were, it would be binding not only on the state, but also on the private sector, even though the latter has no tax revenues with which it can help fulfill guaranteed rights. So whether horizontal application was to extend to the socioeconomic rights was a little uncertain, at least in the beginning, but now I think it's become increasingly clear, at least in the context of healthcare, that the ANC does see the right to healthcare as being binding on business, and this is part of the rationale for the NHI demand, that private hospitals, for example, must treat patients for free and then reclaim from the NHI fund in the amount that the state is willing to sanction, because prices will be set by the state. The fees that surgeons and doctors can charge will be decided by the NHI fund, and at the end of the day, these could be too low to cover reasonable costs, and private hospitals could find themselves being pushed towards bankruptcy. Then, very important goal for the NDR is to de-link people from the capitalist economy. And one of the ways that you do that is by getting the state to provide a whole lot of goods and services. So we have had the state for many years providing free RDP housing, free basic water and electricity, mostly free schooling and university education and healthcare, and by 2018, some 17.5 million social grants which were being paid out in cash every month. So this was an extraordinary effort, obviously very helpful to the poor, but also building a dependency on the state and the idea that it's the state that should provide these things and not the competitive, innovative private sector. Under Ramaphosa, our new dawn reformist president, there has been a whole slew of interventions of an NDR kind, too many to list here. So many, in fact, that one could see Ramaphosa as the most successful RET president rather than Zuma. But the National Minimum Wage Act is particularly important, so let's look at that quickly. What it has meant is that poorly skilled and inexperienced youth are being priced out of jobs. And that's partly because the national minimum wage was set at quite a high level when it began. And since then, it's gone up very fast. It's gone up 20% in general, and for some groups, such as domestic servants, where it started out lower, it's gone up by 70% in 4 years. So that's an extraordinary increase, and I think it's not surprising that many domestic servants' jobs are now unfortunately being lost. Employers effectively incur a loss in hiring those who have poor schooling, no experience, no on-the-job knowledge, and Ramaphosa is well aware of this. It's his wording that he says that employers incur a loss, and so they have no reason to employ the people who don't have experience. So youth unemployment through this and many other labour interventions is being pushed up, and as we now know, the official rate exceeds 60%, and the expanded rate, where you take into account those too discouraged to keep looking for jobs, it exceeds 70%. And this, of course, from the NDR perspective, adds to revolutionary potential. It creates instability. It also creates a demand for permanent public employment programs. The idea is that we shouldn't just have temporary job opportunities as have had for many years in the expanded public works program. Rather, the aim now is for 2 million permanent public jobs by 2030 at a cost of 100 billion, which is yet another thing that the fiscus simply cannot afford, with public debt already so high. Again, though, this will help to de-link people from the capitalist economy. If they don't need to rely on it for jobs and income, this is a very important step forward. But it will also, of course, remove autonomy and the possibility of self-reliance and build yet more dependence on the state.